So I had a thought I wanted to share. Max answered some questions on Tumblr and made some additional follow-up posts last night, this morning, today-ish, about like body positivity, fat issues, feminism, etc. And like I always want to talk about that sort of thing, but then like reading Max write anything about any topic, it's just like, why do you even bother having thoughts? So brilliant, really. But I did have some thoughts. I was like trying to take notes, but also just like it's kind of hard to follow up anything Max writes, honestly, because like she's so thorough while also being concise and like just touching on so many things at once. It's always like, ugh, how do you respond to that? But I did have a thought that I wanted to share. So I think when people get into like social justice-y type stuff, they kind of get into the habit of like starting with like racism or sexism or something where there's a very particular dynamic to privilege and oppression, and then trying to apply that out to other types of issues. And I understand why people do that. It makes it a lot easier to kind of like learn about a new issue, but I also don't know that it's necessarily the best way to frame certain issues. It's like when it comes to like the fat issue, if you're coming at it from that perspective, you get like a privileged class and an oppressor class, and the privileged class has the privileges and they oppress the oppressed class, and there's like a very particular dynamic involved there, and I don't know that that's necessarily at play with the fat issue. I think it is kind of more like economic inequality in the way that, you know, you can shift through different categorizations at different points in your life. Like I can't not be female. I can't not be white. Like those are just things about me that are true. They're true when I was born. They'll be true when I die. They're just there. It's possible for me to change the way my body looks. It's possible for me to change my income bracket. The extent to which those changes are possible varies wildly based on 1,004 different factors, but like, you know, it's just like stuff like that where it's like I get trying to frame things within a certain context because that's how you understand things like privilege and oppression, but it doesn't always work. And what I see happening is people starting from something that they do understand and trying to work their way backwards into shoehorning a metaphor. So like if you know that like gay kids are more likely than straight kids to kill themselves because heterosexism, like people will work backwards from that and be like, okay, if being fat is just like being gay, then fat kids must be more likely to kill themselves. And maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. I haven't seen statistics on that. But like that kind of line of thinking, like it's generally coming from a good place. Like people want to be good people that want to help people. I think most of us don't want children killing themselves. But it sort of lends itself to this pattern of like philosophical thinking where you're starting with your conclusion and kind of working your way back to, okay, how do I make this sort of idea fit into the framework that I already have? All that said, I really don't like the expression thin privilege. I don't necessarily find it useful. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to say about how society treats people based on how their looks. There's definitely like, it's more obviously an issue for women than it is for men, which isn't to say that it doesn't impact men, just in different ways. Does that mean that it intersects with misogyny in some way, or does that mean that it's an offshoot of misogyny? Would it exist without misogyny? Like, I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that. Those are questions worth asking. Those are things I think that we should be talking about. But I don't know that we necessarily are asking those kinds of questions because we're working out of an imperfect framework. There are absolutely issues that you have to deal with, and I mean, people like to talk about the kind of more like petty, shallow stuff. Like, if people think I'm ugly, they won't want to date me, which I guess is sad if you're the kind of person who wants to date somebody, but I don't know. I don't really care. Honestly, like, if people don't want to date you, they don't want to date you, and that's just kind of something you have to deal with. The thing that really stands out to me is from like a medical standpoint. Like, we know that doctors provide suboptimal care to fat people, especially fat women. That's a problem. That's a problem. Doctors providing suboptimal care to anyone for any reason is a problem. Deliberately providing suboptimal care to specific types of people based off of demographic information is a problem. It's wrong. They should not be doing it. The other thing that really stands out to me is, and I think this kind of roots back into kind of fat issues as an extension of or intersection with feminism, is like the economic issue. It's like, we know that basically like the suppression of women's economic viability is a fundamental aspect of the subjugation of women in a patriarchal society. And so if you get into this idea that, you know, fat women are statistically less likely to get certain jobs and less likely to get promoted within certain positions, less likely to get raises or bonuses, cultural perception that fat women are lazy or bad at whatever it is they're doing, are somehow morally inferior because of the size of their body, and that somehow translates to their work. Those are all factors that kind of tie into various ways in which women are subjected to economic disparity. And I think those are the kinds of things that we should be talking more about, researching more. I don't know if I had an end goal of what I wanted to say with this, just kind of things that I'm like stewing on as I'm driving home from work every day. Yeah, I don't know. It's good for that.